We're going to make cider today, and this is the easiest possible recipe that we could use. It's going to have only the absolute essentials, and we're going to see how that goes, or show you how that goes. The name of the video, making cider in 5 minutes. I know that's a little bit clickbaity, but we're going to see if we can do it here in 5 minutes. It won't actually be ready to drink in 5 minutes, obviously, because it has to ferment for quite a while. But for the actual preparation of it is going to take about 5 minutes. So I'm going to say the simplest possible. We even bought the apple juice. Obviously, if you press your own, grow your own apples and press your own, that's the best results you can possibly have. But we purchased some 100% pressed apple juice jugs. No preservatives, nothing like that, nothing that could interfere with the fermentation. We're now going to start the timer and see if we can actually get both of these ready in 5 minutes. We're going to make 2 jugs of cider. One will have a clarifier, one will not have a clarifier. That will be the only difference. So we're going to add a Camden tablet to both of them. And all the equipment was cleaned and sterilized last night. This Camden tablet was crushed and dissolved in a tablespoon of water. So we'll add that to both of them. The next step is to add the yeast. I'm going to add half a teaspoon to each, float it on top. That will activate the yeast. It'll sit for 3 minutes, so that's where the bulk of our time will be spent. And then after 3 minutes, we will put the top back on, shake it for a few seconds, put the stopper in, the airlock in, and that will be done. Almost there, so at the 4-minute mark, we're going to put the caps back on and give them a good shake. I neglected to put the clarifier in, so we'll go ahead and add that now right before we mix it up. And add this at the beginning. This is 1 ounce. Other than that, they will be exactly the same. So it took a little longer than 5 minutes. That was 7 minutes, but it also was 2 jugs. So we're going to leave this to ferment. We're going to check on it after probably 2 weeks. It has to go into a reasonably cool, dark place. Cider is done fermenting. This bottle here was the one with clarifier, as you can see. All of our bottles are cleaned and sanitized, and we're going to fill them, bottle them. They need to sit for another couple of months before they're ready to drink. So this step is actually optional. We're going to pasteurize the bottles. I have 12 bottles of cider here. I did not back sweeten this. I just, at the end of fermentation, I just bottled it. There's no real urgency to pasteurize, and it's actually not even really necessary if you're sensitive to yeast. You don't want the small amount of suspended yeast in the cider to drink it, then you'll need to do the pasteurization. And I have some leftover hot water from canning project, so it just seemed appropriate to do that. It's about 180 degrees. Just put the bottles in and leave them for about 10 minutes. You can leave them in longer. But at this point, we'll just put the bottles in. And I'll put them evenly spaced. You'll notice this is on the counter, not on the stove. So I removed it from the stove. And we'll just evenly space them around. The temperature isn't super important. I just said 180 degrees because that's what it was at. Don't want to really be any hotter than that. We just need to get the bottles up above 120 degrees so that it will kill the yeast. And that's probably good enough. So we'll just let those sit for a little bit. So today is the big day, the big reveal. How does it taste? This is the payoff from all the work. We're going to find out how the cider tastes. It was in the fermenter for about a month, then it has been aging for about 3.5 months. We have 2 bottles here. One was with the clarifier, one without the clarifier, so we can see the difference. As you'll recall from the last segment, we have pasteurized them to kill any residual yeast. That's of course an optional step, but now we're going to see how it looks and how it tastes. That's the most important thing. How does it taste? So we got a couple of cider glasses here that we're going to use, and we're going to open the top. That is first our unclarified. And our clarified. So right away we can see the difference between the clarified and non-clarified. The clarified is much clearer, and the non-clarified is cloudy. So it doesn't affect the taste, it's purely appearance. So if you really want your cider to be clear, then add the clarifier. Otherwise, if you don't care, then it's totally not necessary and you can just skip that step. In general, I leave mine unclarified. So one of the things you might have noticed when I poured that out is there were no bubbles. So this is not carbonated, so it's called still cider, so meaning uncarbonated. You might even call it apple wine. And again, if you don't want a bubble, then you don't need to add any bubbles. If you are, and now what you can't tell just by looking at it, is it's actually very dry. So the yeast has consumed all the sugars in the original apple juice, and it's now very dry. Again, if you like the taste, you can leave it that way. If you want it more sweet, either semi-sweet or very sweet, then you have to back sweeten it at the time of bottling. That's one option. So that means you add sweetener back in right before you bottle it. But if you do that, as we said, there's a little bit of residual yeast suspended in the cider. When you add more sugar, it will kickstart fermentation again and start carbonation process, start producing CO2. If you bottle it at that point, eventually the pressure will build up to the point where the bottles will break, will explode. So you have a time limit on your pasteurization. You have to pasteurize before the pressure builds up too much. So give it a day or two. You can do some trial and error. You can put some of your cider in a plastic bottle and give it a squeeze test to see if you gotten to the proper carbonation point. At that point, you must pasteurize it. Don't let the pressure keep building up. Or you can leave it. Option number 2 to sweeten is to sweeten when you are ready to drink it. So the disadvantage of that is you can't just open the bottle and drink. You have to sweeten it at that point. The advantage of sweetening at the time you drink it is you have lots of different options. Each bottle can be different. If you back sweeten at the time you bottle it, then generally you're going to use the same sweetener and amount of sweetener for the whole batch. But if you sweeten at the time you drink it, when you open the bottle, then each bottle can have different amount of sweetener in it. You can also use different types of sweetener. So here's some examples. You can just have plain old sugar water. So this is about 4 tablespoons of sugar dissolved in a cup of water. So you just warm the water and put the sugar in it. And again, sweeten is to taste. So if you like it sweeter, just add more sugar. I put about 3 tablespoons of that syrup in a 12-ounce bottle, and it seems to be about right to me. It makes it about semi-sweet. Or you can use honey, so about the same amount of honey dissolved in water. And that's real good. It's almost like a cider. It doesn't taste like, cider is a mead made from apple juice and honey. So because you're using honey to sweeten, it kind of has a cider taste. It's not cider, but if you like honey, then you'll probably like that. Here's some maple syrup. Again, about the same amount, dissolved in a cup of water. Or a ginger syrup. So this is a ginger syrup we use for making ginger ale. We put a little bit in a cup, put some carbonated water in it, and then we have ginger ale, real ginger ale, not ginger flavored corn syrup water, which is what you get commercially now. This is real ginger ale made with real ginger, though of course it's not alcohol. So these are just 4 examples that we have in the fridge right now. You can use brown sugar instead of white sugar. You can use molasses. You can use date syrup. Any kind of sweetener you want. If you're trying to stay away from sugar for personal reasons or for medical reasons, maybe you have diabetes and you want to stay away from sugar entirely, you can sweeten with your non-calorie sweetener of choice. And you do that when you drink it and just sweeten it to taste. So right now we're going to make one with, let's go with the maple syrup. Now the final piece of the puzzle is carbonation. So you don't have to carbonate, of course. You can just put a couple of tablespoons of sweetener in your cup, stir it up, but maybe you really like it to be carbonated. So you can also do that at the time of when you drink it as well. So there's lots of different products on the market that will carbonate water or carbonate drinks. Some will only carbonate water. This channel is not affiliated with any particular drink carbonation accessory, so I'm not going to name the one that I'm using. Just do your research, pick one that you feel comfortable with. Maybe you already have one at home. Carbonate your cider at the time you drink it. So that's exactly what we're going to do now. We're going to put about 3 tablespoons of this maple syrup in here, along with one of those. And let's choose the clear one. I did 4 pumps. I think I overdid it. I'll do 3 next time. So now you have sweetened and carbonated cider to drink. So hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you at least try sweetening different kinds of sweeteners and sweetening at the time you drink it. It gives you lots of different choices and lots of different control over what you're drinking. So again, hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.